And okay, I'm recording. So we'll officially start. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Educators in Industry. It is Friday, so I think this is the first time we've done a Friday session, Friday, April 16th. And welcome to Educators in Industry. Today's featured business is the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. And Tom, I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later and mention, I think there's like 7 or is it 8 facilities in the Grand Rapids area, Tom?
8.
How many?
8.
8.
Yes.
Awesome. Just to let you know some basic logistics, when you come in, your mics should be muted. My ask is that you actually keep your camera on though, because it's really great for us to be able to see faces as we go through the session. So let me talk a little bit about our goals for today. And before I do, quickly, just very quickly, if today is your first time attending one of our teachers in industry, would you just go ahead in the chat and say first time or raise the hand or some type of feature to let us know that this was a first time for you? Because we definitely like to know those people who are coming for the first time. So if it's your first time, just go ahead and share that with everybody. Awesome, Jamie, awesome, thank you. So a couple, awesome, first of this type. So it's the goal for today's session is to help educators like yourselves to connect with and to hear from different local employers regarding the jobs and skills that are critical for today's workforce. I've been doing this for 6 years now. My name is Eric Kelleher. I'm a career readiness consultant with Kent ISD. And I've had people tell me over and over again that this is one of the best PDs that they go to, whether that's teachers or counselors or even administrators. And I have to admit, it's not because of me, but it's because it allows you to get in the, to get to meet face-to-face, or in today's case, face-to-face virtually, but to get to actually be in front of some of these employers and to hear from their lips and their mouths what it is that they're looking for today's employees. And so then you can take that back to your students. And I always kind of preach when we do this, there's like 3 goals for my career, for the educators in industry. First is the low-hanging fruit, to simply hear about some different careers that maybe you didn't even know about. Maybe you've heard of physical therapist, but you might not have heard about some of the other roles in a physical therapist's office or a rehabilitation clinic. And so now you'll hear about a couple more different roles and say, hey, talking to some of your students, yeah, you might not say that you're interested in being a doctor, but there's other roles that you can play and still work in medicine. If people say, well, I really would like to do that, but the 6-8 year thing is not for me, or I don't have the grades to do that, but I really do want to help people. You might be able to hear about some jobs today you never knew about and share that with the kids. The second goal that when I do this program is always to allow you to hear from people like Tom and his colleagues, to hear about what it is that they're looking for. What are the skills that they say are required for their specific jobs, but also just in general, like, hey, in the workplace, here's some of the things that we've seen. And we've said, like, kids come, or young adults, or even college graduates are coming to us saying that they think they're ready for the job and they're not, and they're missing out on this, and this skill. Or like, these are the types of things that you need to know, or, hey, here's just some lessons learned along the way that I've had to learn the hard way. And I would love for you to take these back to the students and tell them, hey, like, pick up from my experiences and my lessons learned, that you can share those things. And then finally, the third goal, this is the ultimate goal, is when you as counselors or teachers or administrators get to a point where you make that aha connection, that's saying, Tom is giving up his time and energy to come and share this, but this is usually just a first step. When you say, hey, I teach physics, I would love to have Tom come and talk to our class, even if we just do it via Zoom, because we can do that now, and talk to our students in physics, or to talk in an anatomy class or something like that, to be able to talk in some of these classes, or to be able to build the connection, or, hey, my kids are doing a project. Do you think Tom would be willing, or some of his colleagues would be willing to give their feedback on some of our projects? When we get to a place, and I'm not putting Tom on the spot, it might not be Tom, but it could be somebody like him or his team. Or when we get to a place where we're actually connecting what we're doing in the classroom and in our buildings with what's going on out in the real world, now we're building true relevance, and kids' levels of engagement, I guarantee you, will be increased when we see that happen. So that is the ultimate goal of what we're doing. So a couple of quick things here. Please, please, please ask questions via the chat feature. I get some people continually asking questions, and I get a lot of you, not here to point fingers, but I get a lot of people come on and they just sit and passively observe. This really is not meant to be a passive observation. Yes, you're going to be just sitting and taking some stuff in. Tom is going to share some videos. I think there were some interviews done and things like that, but you do need to be actively involved. Here's your chance to ask questions of employers. Of course, this session is being recorded. And also, in order to receive SCECHs, you will need to complete a survey at the end. There's a 6-digit code that I'll provide later. So not only do you have to attend the whole thing, but you will need to fill out the 6-digit survey code and fill out the survey in order to get credit for this session today. Couple other quick things. I do have a survey at the end that I'm hoping that you would be willing to complete as I'm looking ahead to next year. So not only a survey for today's session, but a general survey saying, hey, what about this program has worked, what hasn't, what types of things do we need to consider going forward. With that, I have just a couple more slides and I'm going to turn it over. Hey, some session norms. Please make sure that your mic is muted as you're listening. But as there's times to offer questions, I always say go ahead and use the chat room. But if there's an opportunity and you want to ask a question live during the right and appropriate time, please unmute your mic and go ahead and share that. Number 2, be an active participant. Please, please, please contribute to the discussion activities. I know how it goes, and I know that sometimes there's some people who turn on the video and they're kind of doing other things because you're trying to multitask. But try to be an active participant and ask questions of Tom and his team. Number 3, keep your screen on whenever possible. I mentioned that one already. It really does help put faces to those participating and helps to increase your engagement, as well as just helps for Tom and myself and the team. Number 4, raise your hand, use the chat, whatever, but just ask lots of questions. And finally, if you would do this, please rename yourself on your Zoom screen to whatever your first and last name is that you registered under. In order for us to give you SCECHs, we have to match names to those who are registered. And some people join the chat and their Zoom name is like Hot Mama. And that's great if you're Hot Mama, but I don't know who Hot Mama is. And you might need to, like, if your name is, and I'm gonna say Chris Toy because you've been on here a lot, Chris. So hers is not Hot Mama. But if your name is not listed correctly, then it's really hard for us to match it up and get SCECHs that you deserve. So wrapping that up now, I want to just really at this point now, we're going to turn it over and I want to introduce Tom Gustafson from the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Eric.
And I did put Tom's email address up there. If any of you have questions, you can go ahead and grab it. Maybe at the end, he'll be willing to share it again later. But I just wanted to make sure that we give credit to Tom and his team for coming on. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see his face. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. All right, so let me, I'm going to start sharing my screen as I talk here. Bear with me here. And now, Eric, call me out if there's anything I'm skipping from the steps that we talked about earlier. But yeah, we'll get going on this thing in just a minute. So yeah, thank you guys so much for having me here and also the rest of the team that's going to be coming on. Again, Center for Physical Rehabilitation. We're in Grand Rapids, Greater Grand Rapids area, 8 locations around the Greater Grand Rapids area. And today we're really going to be highlighting, 5 different professions within the realm of physical rehabilitation and wellness. So for myself, I'll be talking about physical therapy, and they're going to be, they're all embedded videos, so answering some basic questions about the career. And so we get the joy of watching ourselves talk, which is always a ton of fun. But we're going to be going through, so for myself, and then Allison Whitberry will be coming on talking about physical therapy assistant and her experience in that. We'll have, and I'm not sure if it's in this order, but I believe Alex Salinas coming on talking about athletic training. He's an athletic trainer at Forest Hills Northern. We will have Joe Shiramonte coming on, strength and conditioning. He runs our strength and conditioning program and is based out of our Byron Center High School. And then we have Lee McLaughlin as well, will be on here, and she heads up our wellness academy and talking about that aspect of physical rehabilitation and wellness and the different nuances of that. So with that being said, we're going to jump into this thing. Let me make sure I've got, okay, I believe I'm sharing sound. So again, Eric, call me out if I'm missing anything here. All right.
Will do.
Thank you. And I'm going to lean back so I'm not right in the camera. There we go. Okay, so first video here, we're going to do, let me just give you a quick format. We're going to go through an initial, just kind of introductory video about the company, just a short 2-minute video. Then we're going to go into individual careers from there. And what we'll do is we'll present, the first one will be physical therapy, give you guys some space to ask me questions. Then we'll move down to Allison and kind of continue in that fashion. So ask as many questions as you guys have, but yeah, enjoy. Thank you again for joining.
At the Center for Physical Rehabilitation, our highly credentialed team is passionate about the health of our community. With 25 years of serving Greater Grand Rapids, we have grown to become the resource for all-inclusive physical therapy. Our compassionate approach will get you back faster, helping you reduce your overall healthcare costs. The center offers programming in sports medicine, women's health, occupational therapy, aquatherapy, pediatrics, spine care, industrial medicine and workers' compensation services, as well as many specialty treatment options. The center offers athletic training services to many area high schools and universities. Our certified athletic trainers are on the front line of keeping West Michigan athletes safe. We also provide strength and conditioning services to many of these schools. Through functional athletic training, we know we are playing a role in preventing injuries. Our Academy for Sports and Wellness, located at our Cascade location, offers one-on-one personal training, functional athletic development programming, as well as adult-style fitness classes for all ages, including balance training for our seniors. Let our team help you live beyond limits.
All right. So brief introduction there. We're going to jump right into me next here, talking maybe. There we go. And we'll get into it. And then we'll leave some space after this one to answer any questions you guys have. First about physical therapy and that profession.
Hi, my name is Tom Gustafson. I'm a physical therapist and the clinic director of our downtown location. So I think first off, we should talk on what is a physical therapist. And at the Center for Physical Rehab, we are predominantly an outpatient orthopedic physical therapy practice. And before I dive into what does that entail, what does that mean, I should mention that there are multiple types of physical therapy that are out there, and that can range from spinal cord injury, brain injury, stroke rehabilitation. You can get into the inpatient, the in the hospital, acute care type of physical therapy, cardiovascular. There's lots of difference, and probably some that I didn't even name. And then within all those subspecialties that exist. But for our purposes, talking about physical therapy, I'm going to talk more about the orthopedic physical therapy that I practice in and that we practice in our company. So regarding the schooling for physical therapy, it's a 3-year postgraduate degree. So it's a 3-year doctorate in physical therapy. So it's a clinical doctorate, DPT. And it is, programs are typically divided into about 80% of the program being didactic learning, with 20% of it being clinical learning. Speaking, and different schools kind of split it up in different ways as far as how they split up their rotations and when you do them. But speaking for Grand Valley, which is where I went, the rotations were split up into a 5-week rotation in your first year, a 6-week rotation in your second year, and 3 9-week rotations in your third year. The rest of the admissions, it's a pretty competitive program. They're fairly competitive programs to get into, with higher required GPAs or higher average GPAs. So I can't speak across the entire country where they're at, but I believe Grand Valley's actually GPA somewhere like the average like 3.7 to 3.9, somewhere in that range. So it's a pretty competitive program to get into, and class size around 60. Now it was about 44 when I graduated in 2012, but they've increased the size of the program over time as there's been more of a demand for physical therapy in the healthcare environment. So my path to becoming a physical therapist started, well, probably before high school. I grew up always very interested in exercise and fitness and the human body from a muscular standpoint, and understanding it from that standpoint. But in high school, I really didn't have much direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go or how I was going to apply anything towards a career. And I knew I didn't want to go into the health professions such as physician or nursing or PA or anything else for that matter. There was really nothing that stood out. I didn't know what I wanted to do or how to apply what I was actually interested in. And the first class that I actually liked in high school was my anatomy and physiology class. And it was the first class I actually really applied myself and enjoyed studying and enjoyed learning these things. And I remember my teacher at the time, he reached out to me, he sought me out and asked me if I had any interest in physical therapy as a career. And I had heard of it a little bit in the past and didn't know a ton about it, but he went out of his way to connect me with one of his friends who was a physical therapist. And so I actually got to do some observation. I went in and spent a couple days with a physical therapist and saw that, okay, yeah, this is how I can start to apply to things that I'm actually interested in. So that really planted the seed that then in the coming years, that was probably my junior year of high school, and once I got to college, that's when I knew, all right, this is the route I want to go. This is the direction that I want to go with my career. And so from there, it was really getting involved in the pre-physical therapy club and talking to counselors and figuring out what's the coursework that I need to do. How do I set myself up for success to get into PT programs. And then from there, it was really just learning a little bit more over time. And I mean, even through graduate school, you continue to learn what the career was and realizing more and more that, yeah, this is what I really want to do. And I'll even say that to this day, it becomes more and more solidified over the years of just how much I enjoy this profession and how valuable this profession is to me, as well as what it brings to other people. So, and to now ultimately be in a place where I'm working in a management position as a clinic director is kind of an evolution of the career even further. But yeah, that was really my path that got me kick-started in the direction of physical therapy. Regarding the skills that are critical for being a physical therapist, I'd consider that one of the biggest ones is just personal interaction abilities, because so much of the ability for a person to heal and to recover from something comes from the ability to develop trust between the therapist and the patient, and for them to be able to do that quickly, and doing that through building relationship and doing that through conversation and being able to listen really well and to hear where this person's coming from and hear where their big issues are, and to be able to read between the lines a little bit of things that they're saying and get to the heart of what's going on. So those human interaction skills, the ability to develop trust quickly, and to be able to critically think through problems, because there's a lot of different factors that need to be considered when you're working through any sort of case with a patient, and to be able to identify and to think through what's pertinent here, how do they all work together, how do they tie together. That's a big one. So I'd consider it when you're looking outside of all the technical knowledge that's required as a physical therapist, I would consider just human interaction skills, really good listening skills, and the ability to critically think and to integrate a lot of different components and tie it together to really develop what is going to be the best plan of action. I'd consider those among the most important skills. A factor that most people are going to be considering if they're deciding, is this a career for me, is going to be the pay. How much can I count on getting paid? And the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics in 2019, the median pay for a physical therapist in the U.S. was $89,000. There is a large range. That's the median. And unfortunately, I don't have the mean of that, but it's going to factor in all the states in the country. So higher cost of living states as well. But it's going to vary very, very much depending on if you're an entry-level therapist versus a senior-level therapist, if you're in management, if you are in upper management. There's a large range that exists within that, but the median pay in the U.S. is $89,000. So likes and dislikes. I think the likes are. It's an incredible job. It's an extremely rewarding job. You are working with people and you're seeing them. Some people who take longer, you get to see their gradual improvement over time, and you get to see them return to a life that they've wanted to live. So it's extremely rewarding in that regard. And with some people, it's a much shorter stay, and you're able to see rapid changes in their life and rapid changes in their pain, and they're able to get back to all the things that they love to do. So that's an easy like about this job. It's just extremely rewarding, and you get to meet so many people that you otherwise wouldn't meet in that process. I'd say that's probably the biggest like of this job. Along with it, it's just you're always learning, always growing. You're always being pushed to learn something new and to apply some new knowledge, and you get humbled quite a bit when you realize you don't know it all, and then you have to learn some more, and you have to build. So it's a lot of fun. And it's challenging at times, but it can be a lot of fun to continue to learn new things and to adapt to changing knowledge in the field. So those are a couple of things I really like about the job. And as far as dislikes, I think you're going to get this from just about any therapist and probably anyone in any health profession, or probably most jobs in general. It's the documentation. And that is what it is. It's a part of the job. It's necessary for payment. It's necessary for our tracking of our care. Would it be easier if I didn't have to document all the things I did? Yeah, sure, it would be. And so I guess I'd consider that among probably the dislikes of the job. But, I'd consider this to be, I'm really grateful to be in the position I'm in, because there are so many positives in this job and so many things that are enjoyable that outweigh kind of the daily kind of grind pieces of it.
Okay, so we'll pause for a few minutes here before we jump on to Allie and get her perspective on PTA. And if anyone has any questions to follow up from everything that I just said in the video, if there's any follow-ups or anything to build on that, please ask them now. I'd be happy to answer
them. So I just unmuted myself. We'll wait just a couple of seconds to see if any questions come in. In the meantime, Tom, I will go ahead, and this is fantastic. Just to let you know, people, I usually try to give several questions to people to prep them a little bit, and Tom nailed it. So I did one of the things I catch every time. I catch this on a regular basis, but it seems like there's oftentimes people we've had on these sessions that have said a class that a student took had a teacher that really had an impact with subject matter that really caught their interest, and a teacher who helped say, hey, are you interested in this further, and helping them to point in the right direction. It's not the first time that we've heard that, Tom. So that's pretty cool to hear that. Not only did you have a class that really stood out to you, but also a teacher that took some interest and also point you in the right direction. So that's cool. Some questions that came in. Once Noreen asked, does the student need to have taken anatomy before college?
No. So any of the prerequisites for school are going to be all within college, within university study. Now, if they take it in high school, that gives them a leg up. If they know that this is something that they're interested in, then when you go into your college course, your anatomy physiology, you've got the baseline already established that you can build from. So then you keep growing from there. But no, it's not required that they need to take it before college.
Yeah, great question, great answer. Angela asks, what classes for high school students, what classes could they take that would help to support this career? Obviously, anatomy helped you in giving you an idea that you're interested in it. Are there any other classes you would suggest that person who might be interested in physical therapy, a great class for them to take would be?
Yeah. So for the job itself, for physical therapy, if the high school offers any psychology courses, I would highly recommend that because there is such a huge component of it that is interpersonal interaction, and the deeper that you can understand psychology, and the better that you're able to, or the more that you're able to get into that, that can help bolster what you're doing as far as the physical therapy realm. With regards to things that would prep for coursework required for physical therapy, obviously physiology, it was already mentioned, but because of its requirement in college as a prerequisite, and because as competitive as the programs are, the courses that people often struggle with, at least from what I shouldn't say that completely, from my own experience and speaking to a lot of people, the areas where people struggle in the prerequisite courses are in physics and in chemistry. And so if you have a background of that from high school, that will set you up then for more success in your collegiate chemistry and physics classes, which again, prerequisites for getting to school. So the better you can do in those, the better that's going to support your GPA in that realm. But yeah, I think that those would probably be the big ones: your anatomy, physiology, as well as your psychology, and then otherwise, like I mentioned, the ones that are going to support what you'll build on in college.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I did take psychology in high school. Our school offered it, but I think that's a great insight. I don't know that probably one of us here would have considered that, but I've done physical therapy myself several times, and there is probably, to kind of like going to the hairdresser, right? Like there's a lot of talking going on, and you probably have to do a lot of emotional therapy as well as physical therapy. So that makes a lot of sense. Another great question from Nicole says, what undergraduate degree do you recommend for students who want to become a physical therapist?
Yeah, I think that, well, a couple of majors, a couple of degrees are going to encompass a lot of the prerequisites. And it's going to vary from school to school, what's included in that. But you'll have, so for PT, what you'll see commonly are exercise science majors is a big one, because that encompasses a lot of the coursework that's required in order to get your prerequisites done for graduate school. So you'll see a lot of the exercise science. For myself, I did a psychology major and an exercise science minor. And so that still covered a lot of the bases to get it in. But that's exercise science, and in that realm, kinesiology in that realm is probably your most common major. But I had a classmate who was a business major, and then did his prerequisites aside from his major work in the for PT. So you'll see, I've talked to someone who's a dance major. So you'll see kind of these ones that seem outside of the norm, but you're still able to make them work. I'd say that the most common ones are those that I mentioned.
Okay, all right. These are great questions, everybody, by the way. Some of the best ones we've had. I think because you did a great job of addressing very specifics, the questions are more specific, which is great. Somebody, Melissa, asks here, do you know if community college credits can apply that students can take in high school as dual enrollment? So for example, I think what she's maybe asking is, if a kid is taking chemistry as a dual enrollment and they're not just taking high school chemistry, but community college, or maybe even a GVSU chemistry, will that apply to the undergraduate requirements as prereqs for getting in the program?
Mm-hmm. I believe so. If you transfer them and then the university takes them, I believe that it doesn't matter where it comes from. Yeah, as long as they're completed.
So I'm going to ask a question that's not in here. Let's say a person decides midway through their undergrad, so they're a junior maybe, and they were going a different path. They were going to be a journalist, and they decided that they wanted to go into physical therapy. It's a big jump and a big change. That's still an option for them, right? But they just have to make sure, or maybe they've already got an undergrad degree and they didn't take physics and they didn't take anatomy. They can go back and take prerequisites, just like somebody going back to nursing school to take those prereqs that they need in order to apply for the program. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to jump in real quick because I want to make sure that we have time. I want to make sure, I don't want to leave out any of the other individuals who are going to be featured on here.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we jump ahead, and I can answer to Jamie and to there's someone else above it. I can answer some of those individually on chat.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll jump into Allison just so we can keep things moving along.
That sounds great.
All right, great. So without further ado,
hi guys, my name is Allie and I'm a physical therapist assistant at the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. So what made me decide to go into physical therapy? Well, when I was in high school, I was really involved in sports, specifically soccer, and I loved not only the training, but also learning about, how I could train better for my sport. So I was pretty sure that I wanted to do something in like sports medicine or some kind of health care. And I was thinking either nursing or physical therapy. So I talked to both a nurse and a physical therapist about their job. What did their education look like? What did their job look like on a day in and day out basis? What did they like and dislike about their job? And I had a pretty good idea of what a nurse did, but I'd never been to physical therapy myself, and so I was curious about what it looked like on a daily basis to be a physical therapist. So I went and observed a physical therapist at his job, and then I also had a friend who was a physical therapist assistant, and so I went and observed her at her job and just really fell in love with what they did. And I was really pleased with how much independence the physical therapist assistant really had, and just really liked what physical therapy looked like. So what exactly is a physical therapist assistant? A physical therapist assistant works under the direct supervision of a physical therapist, and that can look very different depending on where you work. But typically, physical therapist assistants can have a lot of independence when they're treating patients. When I did an internship at an inpatient rehab hospital, the physical therapist would do the initial evaluation and then any other assessments that they needed to do in visits after that. However, the physical therapist assistant had a lot of independence in treating the patients, and also at the place where I work currently, it's an outpatient orthopedic facility. So how it looks for me is 3 days a week I treat directly with a physical therapist. So we work off the same schedule, seeing the patients, and when a patient comes in, I might get the patient started on a warm-up, and then the physical therapist will check in with them after that. And then I take them through a series of therapeutic exercises. However, 2 days a week I work independently, so that means I have my own schedule and I see the patient start to finish for their entire therapy session. And that gives me a lot of freedom because I can make decisions on what to do with the patient that day. And if I need to make slight adjustments in their care that day, I can do that based on how they responded to the previous treatment. Now, all of the things that I provide for the patient need to be written in the plan of care, but that ends up working out really well if you have good communication with your physical therapist. In Michigan, the only two things really that a physical therapist can do that a physical therapist assistant can't do is the initial evaluation, so when the patient first walks through the door and you diagnose them, and then also manipulation, so spinal manipulations, other joint manipulations. Physical therapist assistants can't do that. But really, physical therapist assistants in Michigan have a lot of independence when they treat patients. It does depend on where you work though, so make sure if you become a physical therapist that you ask the places you're interviewing, what do you allow your physical therapist assistants to do? What does their job look like? As a physical therapist assistant in an outpatient orthopedic facility, I see a lot of different patients. I do see athletes, which I love to work with. They come in after, ACL surgeries or after dislocating their shoulder or even after ankle sprains from their sport, and they are a lot of fun to work with. However, I see a lot of other types of patients. I see a lot of older patients who come in for knee replacements or total hip replacements, or who are just struggling with some balance issues or some weakness issues or, lacking endurance. I see a lot of middle-aged patients as well, patients who have back pain or neck pain from sitting at their desk all day, or patients who are a weekend warrior and they go out skiing and, have to have some type of surgery and they're coming to us to be treated and return to their basic functions after surgery. What does it take to become a physical therapist assistant? It takes applying for, graduating from a physical therapy assistant program, and then also passing a licensure exam. In order to apply for a physical therapy assistant program, you need to get all of the prerequisite courses that the physical therapy assistant program requires, and that varies based on which program you want to apply for at which school. You'll have to get the number of volunteer hours in a physical therapy clinic that they require, and also some physical therapy assistant programs require an interview as you're applying to be accepted into their program. Being accepted into a physical therapy assistant program is somewhat competitive. You definitely need to be able to do your prerequisite courses and get pretty good grades in those courses, but it certainly isn't as competitive as a physical therapy program. As far as the skills needed to get through physical therapy assistant school, you should at least be interested moderately in science because you'll take a lot of science and healthcare classes. And you should also at least have some good skills in your science classes. Other than that, you really just need a lot of determination and hard work. What do I love about being a physical therapist assistant? Well, first, let me just tell you that I do love it. It's a great profession, and I'm so thankful to be a part of this profession. But one of the things that I really love about being a physical therapist assistant is the people interaction that I get to have with my patients specifically every day. You know, if you're a nurse or a doctor, then you see your patients for maybe 24 or 48 hours and then never again. Or you see them for, you know, an hour or half an hour, you know, twice a year. But you really don't, when working in those professions, get to build really, really good relationships with your patients. Whereas being a physical therapist assistant, I see a patient for 2 to 3 times a week for anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. And then later in life, you know, a couple of years down the road, if they have another injury, I get to see that patient again. And seeing a patient one-on-one for that long, you really get to know your patients and you really get to build great relationships with them, and you speak into their life and they speak into your life. And that's a huge benefit of one of the things about being a physical therapist assistant. I also love being a physical therapist assistant because I'm always learning. I'm always learning about science and healthcare and the human body and how to help my patients better. I'm always learning about better ways to strengthen muscles and to teach muscles to fire that don't fire, ways to reduce pain, ways to increase range of motion in different joints. And I love that. I love that I get to keep learning and learn about something that I really enjoy learning about. I really love also about physical therapy that I'm always problem solving. I'm always getting to be creative and think about, okay, how can we combine these treatments to help reduce your pain and help you get back to the things that you love. I love also, on that same note, I love helping patients. I love helping patients in their lives. When you're in pain, it affects so much of your life, and if I can help people reduce their pain and get back to, maybe it's running, maybe it's the sport that they love, maybe it's just going up and down the stairs without pain, then you can really, really make a big impact on people's lives. And I love that. I love the opportunity to get to know the patients and then to help them live their best life. There are things about every job that are not fun. So what's not fun about being a physical therapist assistant? The number one thing that's not fun about being a physical therapist assistant is the paperwork, which no matter what healthcare profession you go into, the paperwork is probably the number one thing that people say they dislike. When I treat a patient, I have to write down everything I do with the patient, what they said about how they're feeling and how they're responding to treatment, which is time consuming and very boring, but definitely worth it still in order to be a physical therapist assistant. The second thing I don't love about being a physical therapist assistant is the schedule. Sometimes schedules can get really, really busy. You know, you have to squish a lot of patients into one day, and you really have to learn how to time manage in order to still give the patients really, really good treatment sessions and really, really meet their needs that they have that day, but also to stay on schedule. If you look online, the average pay for a physical therapist assistant is about $23.50 an hour. However, typically if you work in an outpatient clinic, you get paid less than if you were to work at an inpatient clinic like a hospital or a nursing home. Sometimes also if you work at a place, specifically inpatient facility, that does weekend hours, sometimes there are incentives for working the weekend. So for example, the first job offer that I got right out of college was an inpatient rehab facility, and your week pay per hour was several dollars less than your weekend pay per hour. What are the skills required in order to be a good physical therapist assistant? Well, you need to have some basic writing skills in order to do all of that super fun paperwork that we talked about. And you also need to have some good persuasive writing skills, because in order to get paid for what we do, we need to prove to the insurance companies who are paying for the treatment that the patient does indeed need to be in physical therapy. Also, in order to be a good physical therapist assistant, you've got to be willing to learn. If you finish school and think, oh good, I'm done learning, you are not going to make a good physical therapist assistant, because We're always doing more research. More research is always coming out about better ways to treat patients, and you need to be willing to learn those new things. Also, as you treat patients, patients will respond to some things and not respond to other things, whereas other patients will respond differently. So you need to be able to learn about better ways to treat patients and help them. You also need to have some basic people skills, but you definitely don't need to be the life of the party or a super extrovert in order to do this job. Really what you need as far as people skills, most of all, is you need to be willing to listen. You need to be willing to listen to your patients. What are they telling you about their pain? When does their pain happen? How is their pain affecting their lives? By being a good listener, you will make an excellent physical therapist assistant.
All right. Let's see here.
Hi guys,
Some reason. There we go. Okay. All right. So thank you, Allison, for doing that. Allie, for doing that. I would like to, I'm just looking at our
Hi,
time
guys.
right now again, and I want to make sure that we get through the remaining 3 individuals who present. So if we could we hold some questions, write any questions you have down, throw them in the chat, and we can hit on them at the end. But just so we make sure we get Lee, Joe, and Alex on here, we're just going to move right on to the next video.
Hi, my name is Lee McLaughlin, and I serve as the Wellness Coordinator for the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. Hi, my name is Lee McLaughlin, and I serve as the Wellness Coordinator for the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. I also do some group fitness instruction and personal training as well. So what do I do as a Wellness Coordinator? It's a great question. My days look different. So every day is a little bit different, and that is something I love. I am really in charge of the daily operations. So from the day-to-day tasks and all of that management, that is what takes up a lot of my time, all the way to planning and looking ahead and that behind the scenes growth aspect of my program area. In addition to that operational and kind of managerial type work, I also have the opportunity to work with clients one-on-one, so I am a personal trainer and instructor as well. I hold additional certifications which allow me to do that, and that is critical in the fitness and wellness industry to have additional certifications. It really opens the options up for you. I work in a gym setting. I always have. As a wellness coordinator, doesn't matter where I have worked, I tend to be very close to the gym. So whether that's an office off to the side or literally in this space, and we'll show you an example of that as well. And the clients I work with, so here many of our clients are patients that have been in physical therapy and then they graduate to our services, or maybe they are currently a patient and they're also doing or involved in our programs as well. So I see athletes, young athletes are in our space, all the way up to very much older individuals into their 80s or 90s. So people all across the spectrum there in terms of age and physical ability. That is what is really cool about the field of fitness and wellness, is you can specialize, or with more experience, you can also work with a whole range of individuals. And in this specific area, and this specific job, we see all kinds of different people, and ages totally range, and physical ability range as well. Welcome to the Academy for Sports and Wellness. Let's head in. You can take a look at where I work. So this is my desk. This is where I do all my admin work when I'm not training clients, and I get to interact with everyone that walks into the space. So we have a whole bunch of different equipment. We've got squares on the floor right now for our classes, for social distancing. And it's a big open space, so a lot of fun stuff happens down here. We have PT patients that come down here from upstairs. We have personal training clients. We have clients for classes. So this is where I hang out. I am in the actual gym space for my work day. And then a lot of times it's busy and nice and loud and music is pumping, but right now this is just a view of where we work. It's a fun place to be. So to become a fitness coordinator or wellness coordinator, oftentimes it's more of a leadership role. A lot of times you will see a master's required. It will really depend on the organization or the company though. For my experiences and my jobs throughout the years, whenever I have held the title of a fitness coordinator or a wellness coordinator, I did have both my bachelor's and my master's. And if you're interested in being in the field of fitness and wellness, any kind of bachelor's in kinesiology or exercise science, anything that's related to like physical movement, and it depends on the college or university that a student might be going to, but getting your bachelor's of science and then pursuing a master's definitely would help guide you toward a position like my position that I'm in right now. So the thing that I love the most about my job is being able to interact with people. The environment is usually a lot of fun, and I'm driven by being around others and helping others, so that really at the heart of the work that I do, that's what it's all about, and that's something that I love the most. I also love wellness and fitness, so being able to live that every day and talk about, all things fitness and wellness is pretty fun as well. And then something that I might dislike is probably the schedule. So that is definitely something that is not often talked about. You really have to think about how it might fit for your life. But as a personal trainer or group fitness instructor, you might have to work really, really early and then into the evening. So it's kind of at the bookends of the day. And that's tough. So straight out of college, that is what I did, and I did not love that. And then it depends. So as a fitness coordinator, in the role I'm in now, I do have a little bit more structure with my schedule. But still, since I do serve as a personal trainer and I work with one-on-one with clients, I do get those requests for earlier mornings. So you just have to identify what might your boundaries be, what you can do for your life, for your family. But that's the one thing that I would say I don't love about the field and the specific career path I'm in is the schedule can kind of be tough at times. It might work for some, and others it can be more challenging. So if you were a personal trainer or instructor, a average salary might be around $40,000 or more, especially if you own your own business as well, and you might be in charge of your price structure and whatnot. And then for wellness coordinator position, the salary might start down in that 40 range and make its way up to 50 plus as well. So again, it depends on the organization you're working for, the company you're working for, what that salary might be, but the range can be anywhere from that 40 and beyond.
All right, so that was Lee, and then she'll be available for questions as well. So if you guys have any, start throwing them in that chat, or keep thinking on it. We'll keep this thing moving right along here into whoever's next, which I believe is Alex. All right, let's see if this thing will go full screen this time.
My name is Alex Salinas, and I'm an athletic trainer for the Center for Physical Rehabilitation and the head athletic trainer at Forest Hills Northern High School. I originally started as pre-PT when I was in college at Grand Valley, and then when I was in pre-PT, I started in the athletic training program as well as an undergrad option. So after my first rotation with athletic training, I fell in love with that, and then I stopped even considering physical therapy at that point because I enjoyed my first rotation so much. An athletic trainer is basically an injury prevention specialist. They help manage injuries, prevent injuries, rehabilitate them, as well as direct patient care, whether it's with local orthopedic doctors or other sports medicine specialists. Work in various settings, whether it's secondary school, college, industrial, so think of like major shipping companies, furniture companies, anything that has a lot of repetitive movement. You see injuries in that, and it can help reduce costs to them as well. My patients as a secondary school athletic trainer are pretty much anyone in the building, whether it's a teacher, athletes, non-athletes. I pretty much see anybody affiliated with the high school. Most commonly the student athletes though. Patient population can vary within the profession. You can again work with adults, teenagers, some even in middle school settings. But there's a wide range. You get performing arts, professional sports, pretty much if it's there, there's a possibility for it. Athletic trainers will work in middle school, high school, collegiate settings, industrial settings, as well as performing arts. So think of ballet, Cirque du Soleil, professional wrestling. It's wide ranging. Most schools, as of the past couple of years, have started converting their programs to master's only programs. So you will do 3 or 4 years of your undergraduate degree, and that can either combine into a master's or be a separate master's program. So the minimum for athletic trainers now is a master's degree, but you do have potential to earn a doctoral degree, PhDs, or any terminal degree, if you like that sort of research.
Perfect.
Be competitive, especially over the past couple of years now that the master's programs are picking up again. More and more people are becoming interested, so you'll go through an interview process, testing process, and say most importantly, critical thinking. Like I said, the schedule or your day will always change. You'll have a plan, and then that'll go completely out the window. But just be able to adjust to whatever is thrown at you, whether it's a changing circumstance with an injury, again, or the schedule issue, or just whatever is thrown at you.
Sounds good. And I would assume in your role, you gotta kind of like kids.
Yes. There are better days than others, but
Yes.
for the most part, it's always good.
Excellent. Cool.
Science is crucial to the profession, especially in the anatomy and physiology side of it. You'll have to take chemistry in college for it, you'll have to take biology, but it's all necessary because it sets you up for the classes you'll take later. And all the classes that you'll take in the athletic training program will be more anatomy and movement based and are, in my opinion, a lot more exciting. So some of my favorite things are the people I work with, both coaches, student athletes, as well as other athletic trainers. I like the variety that I get every day, but at the same time, the variety can be a little overwhelming at times. Schedules can turn on a dime. You can go from fine to a power outage, tornado, snow, all of the above, or just rescheduling games, any of that. It can just be a little overwhelming at times. So once I get here each day, I'll go up, check in with the main office, just see if there's anything I missed since I left the previous day. Catch up on any paperwork, any injury documentation from the day before, following up with any doctors, physical therapists, parents that I may have missed the previous day. After that, it's pretty much the time that school gets out, and then it's seeing people for injuries, rehabilitation, and just generally checking in on practices, see how everyone's doing. Then I will stick around until games are over or practices are over.
Got any plans today?
No, just all practices. We were supposed to play East Grand Rapids boys, but that team is quarantined.
Oh,
Or that program is quarantined.
all of East Grand Rapids basketball is going.
All three boys teams are. And our girls are away. Actually, at the spring coaches meeting today too, so I'll stop by that. Seeing as we actually haven't had a season in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Alright.
I will travel with football, varsity football, and I usually explain that as in football we're on opposite sidelines, especially in a varsity game. There's a lot going on, so it's a lot more helpful for the host athletic trainer if you travel and work the opposite sideline. Otherwise, you'll find yourself running back and forth for about 2 hours, and it'll be pretty exhausting. I'll also travel if we're in the postseason, so usually soccer and basketball, I'm able to travel with them and follow that until they're done.
Got it. And then
Summers are different. They're not completely off, but my role changes a little bit, like especially in this past year. It switched more into a COVID-19 screener and keeping track of everyone's survey results. But otherwise, I'll help out with our strength and conditioning camps that we run throughout the summer. And that's all in the morning. So whereas normally I'm working from about 1 o'clock until the evening or night, I'm a morning schedule. So it's kind of a nice change. It frees up the afternoons, gives you plenty of time to go out, go to the beach, do whatever you want. Nationally, across all settings, I guess it's around $48,000 per year.
All right, thanks Alex for that. So we'll start with PT, PTA, kind of on the end of the injury spectrum. We moved to Lee, who's more of the wellness piece of it. Kind of jump back into Alex now. Eric highlighted that he's a, injury prevention specialist. So he's getting more onto the front end of it and right at the point of injury. And now the next one we're gonna be hearing from is Joe at Byron Center. And Joe's on the front end of this thing as well, building up the strength and conditioning so that people aren't getting injured in the first place.
Hi, my name is Joe Shermante, and I am the head athletic trainer and head strength coach here at Byron Center High School in Byron Center, Michigan. I'm also the director of strength and conditioning for the Center for Physical Rehabilitation, a private PT company in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So my career journey, I started off in 1997 as a certified athletic trainer, and I still serve in that capacity. But maybe in 2011 or 12, I became a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA and began dealing with much more of the healthy athlete population instead of primarily the injured athlete population when they were coming off of rehab. I still feel like it's a valuable dual credential, if you will, being an athletic trainer and a strength coach, because I've seen both sides and I know how to transfer an injured athlete better off of coming from injury into back to return to their sport. And as well, looking back, being a good strength coach is also recognizing what they're coming off of with rehab as well, and working closely with the athletic trainers to return them to sport after their official rehab is over. I made the switch primarily because of the hours, and when I had a family, I was still able to cover some late night events in football games and basketball games and wrestling tournaments on the weekends. But being a family man and trying to be home after 6 o'clock for the kids became a little bit more important to me, and being a strength coach allowed me to do that as well. I think athletic training is a great job right out of school, and many people can continue on being athletic trainers late into their careers as well. But for me personally, that was the opportunity that I took when it came. So there are many different routes to becoming a strength coach, and one of them happens to be getting a degree in exercise science, or you could also have a physical education degree as well. You don't necessarily need a 4-year degree to become a fitness professional, but as a strength coach, to be certified by our different governing bodies like the ASCM or the NSCA, you'll have to have a 4-year degree for some of those different certifications. Many phys ed teachers are also strength coaches as well, and obviously they need a 4-year degree when it comes to doing that as well. Some skills that I'll need being a strength coach at this setting is adaptability. Certainly within each session, you may have to be adaptable, and adaptable not only with different teams that come in, but within the lift, you may have different kids with different abilities within those lifts as well. So you may have a freshman cross-country runner coming in that is their first introduction to weight training in the same session as a varsity cross-country runner that is also on the basketball team and on the baseball team that has had 4 years of lifting before. So how do you adapt? That's one thing. Another good skill set would be to have a little bit of a broader knowledge and in anatomy and physiology, as well as having some clinical time in physical therapy and exercise science always helps as well. And as always, if you're a strength coach, maybe having been a former athlete has a good attribute as well. Also, something unique to a strength coach is typically they deal with more of the athletic population. I work with young athletes as young as 11, 12 years old. We have a middle school program. Obviously, we have a high school program here. It's something that I mentioned before that is up and coming. I think it's a good groundwork to get into. Having an exercise science degree can point you in a bunch of different directions as far as going into physical therapy or going into cardiac rehab or going into strength coaching as well. So there's a lot of different avenues to pursue having that basic degree. So I would encourage anyone that is thinking about being a strength coach to pursue what option they would want to go after their degree, and maybe look into the secondary schooling setting or even the private sector as well. So what I like about my job in particular is that I get to work with a normally healthy population of student athletes, helping to make them more durable, stronger, more powerful, helping them move well, move strong, and move fast. That's the best part of the job that I have right now. Stop it. Another thing I like about working with this population and being a strength coach at a high school is it's an up-and-coming field. More and more high schools are understanding the importance of having a staffed strength and conditioning professional, similar to how athletic training was maybe 20 years ago. They find the value of having that person on staff to train their athletes on site in their own weight room with their own teammates, and it creates a little bit of a culture as well. Some of the dislikes about my job are sometimes the early hours, catching teams before school when they might not have time to get a lift in after school. Some of the younger student athletes might not be able to make it out to practice after school by way of a bus, so we need to lift those athletes in the mornings. And sometimes in the evenings, we may stay a little bit later after practice to get some of those lifts in on time, especially in the team setting. So the average pay for a new graduate kind of depends. If you're going into a secondary school setting, you'll be paid as a first-year teacher, probably somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000, depending on the school district. And the same holds true to going into private practice, depending on how many clients you have, if you own your own business, or if you're working under somebody, building up your clientele to get paid a little bit more. So I would say the average start up for someone that's a strength coach is probably around $40,000.
All right, thanks, Joe, on that. So you guys got to hear from 5 different professions in the allied health professions, and ranging from the injury prevention realm, the fitness, strength and conditioning, into that injury prevention piece with the response to initial injury in Alex, and then into the realm of rehabilitation in myself and Allie in the PTA physical therapy, in the physical therapy realm. All these, so if you guys are, as you're looking at this and you're thinking about students that you have, if you have people who have that interest in science and have an interest in the physical sciences and have any expressed interest in fitness, wellness, the body in general, these are all great professions to start guiding them towards or discussing with them. And I know I'm happy to answer any questions if in the future you have them. If you have questions for any of us, I'm sure any of us would be any of the other participants would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the different professions. But we got, I think, 6-7 minutes or so left. Let's open it up now to some more questions, maybe kind of focusing more into the PTA, wellness coordinator, athletic training, and strength and conditioning.
Tom, why don't you stop sharing so that we can see your screen, and then maybe some of the other people who we've added in as guests, if people have questions directly for them, they can answer that. Perfect. Fantastic. So yeah, why don't we open up for questions? I mean, again, fantastic job. But not only did we get a chance to hear from physical therapists, which is, and I'm just talking while you're thinking of questions to write down, people. So fill in air time, all right? But fantastic job is hearing not just from a physical therapist. We think of physical therapy, we think of one role. And too often, we just don't know about these other roles. And I'm guessing that some of you know, oh yeah, there's an athletic trainer at my school. Maybe you don't even know who that person is. And you don't know what the schooling that he went in to do that. Didn't really consider about the strength and conditioning component of that and how they're actually on the teacher scale salary. PTAs, like I said, I've done a lot of physical therapy over the past several years because of bad back and legs, and the PTAs are a critical component, especially in a facility that has a lot of customers coming in and out. PTAs are pretty critical. So to hear about exercise science, to hear about all these different roles, really, really interesting to see different perspectives. So here's a chance to ask your questions. And I'm going to pause for just a second for anybody out there who would really like to they have a hankering to ask a question out loud and not be the chat. I'll pause for just a second. Otherwise, please write your questions in for our guests here. Okay, I try to give a long enough pause to make sure I give everybody a chance to unmute themselves. If you have a question, just jump in, please, either via the chat or you can just jump in and unmute your mic. You did a great job, Tom, and your team for answering a lot of the questions. A lot of times I have several of them. I heard, and you can just kind of reiterate this, I heard several people talking about exercise science. Some people just any type of science undergrad, whether it be anatomy or kinesiology or some type of undergraduate degree for people who need the graduate. Most of the degrees required some type of graduate work, some of them at least the PTA and I think the athletic trainers, so a lot of them are requiring graduate degrees. We talked and heard a lot about the likes and dislikes. What types of, and I think Joe talked about, didn't he start off, did I hear correctly, he started off as an athletic trainer before moving into strength and conditioning? So I guess my question would be, how often do you see people who say, I'm not sure I want to be a PT, but I'm interested in the field, maybe I'll start off as a PTA? Do you see people doing things like that where they're starting off in one field, or maybe they start off as doing something around, working as an athletic trainer, and then they move to a different? Do you see a lot of transition between one field to another within within that industry?
Allie, why don't you take this one within the transition piece from PTA, if you see that much, what that looks like?
Yep. So I just put a note in the chat just to clarify. A physical therapist assistant degree is an associate's degree. So it's really great if you have students who are interested into going into physical therapy and yet they're like, man, I don't know if I want to commit to 7 years of school. Like, that's a long time. And that's kind of the decision that I made. I want to make sure I really like this profession before I spend, 7 years of my life and tens of thousands of dollars studying it. So, so that's a great piece too, if students are interested in physical therapy. So just like PT, you have to do prerequisites and apply for a program.
and get in and finish the program, but it's really only an associate's degree all said and done together. So that's a great option for students if they're not like super sure about, doing 7 years of school. You can transition from being a physical therapist assistant to being a physical therapist. However, there aren't a lot of programs that do that transition. So for example, if you get an associate's degree, you get your license, you treat as a physical therapist assistant, you have to go back to school and get a bachelor's degree before you can even apply for a PT program. Once you get your bachelor's degree, there are, I think, two programs in the nation that are specific for PTAs transitioning into becoming PTs. But again, you have to go back and get that bachelor's degree first. It is possible. I mean, we have a couple physical therapist assistants within our company that did get or have their bachelor's degree, got the prerequisites for the PT program and went to one of those transitional PTA to PT doctorate programs. So it definitely is possible. But again, for students who, don't want to commit to 7 years of school yet, the PTA option is great. They can start working in 2 to 3 years, and they can kind of decide from there, do I like the PTA role? Do I want to go on to the PT role? Learning about athletic training or exercise science, do I want to pursue something else? So it's a great place to start.
Great. Well, that's one of the biggest things thanks, Allie, for sharing that. That's one of the biggest things we talk about, people who considering they want to do nursing. And we really highly suggest, well, if you're interested in nursing, why would you not become a CNA or something like that to get your foot in the door, to get your opportunity? I might assume that if you decided at some point, Allie, that you wanted to go back and become a PT, you've already established your credentials and the fact of your, at least your work ethic, your experience, that you've done that. You have your foot in the door in that regard. Yes, you have to go back and get the degree, but now you know a little bit better what you're getting yourself into. B, you've already accumulated some income along the way. And C, people have already seen your work and they know you, and you've got some contacts along the way. I'd love to see our schools do a better job of helping our students put their foot in the water and get a feel of something first. Let me ask, and this is for anybody on the panel, when it comes to even before we going into the PTA program, what types of internships or even just job shadowing experiences? How many people out there have done job shadows or had students come in and do job shadows to get a feel of whether or not this is a good fit for them?
Joe, Alex, or Lee, you guys want to take this one?
So I actually take a Grand Valley student every semester that's in their athletic training program because they have to do their clinical rotations. I've had a few high school observers, but primarily I work with like one Grand Valley student a semester, comes by for about 20 hours a week to one, gain experience, but two, to absolutely make sure that that's what they want to do.
Great.
Yeah, we have strength interns as well, exercise science interns. We have a big growth of that field coming up, like we said before, and many exercise science people that are taking those programs are looking to get into physical therapy. But I can kind of be selective, and I'll take the kids that are interested in going into more of a education-based or a strength coach-based program. Not that I don't want to take physical therapy interns, but I think my field in general is becoming a little bit more popular now, and kids are realizing out of school that mostly former athletes that they can come into the field and become a teacher and or become a performance specialist after they get out of college.
Great. I know we're almost out of time, and that's the one downside is time is our limitation. I do have a quick question. So we talked about job shadowing. Let me ask, are any of you or all of you, because we are dealing with K-12 area, are any of you or all of you willing to take high school students, even middle school students who said, I really know this is what I want to do? Will you take students who are interested in your specific area to come on and do job shadows?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That was a yes all the way across the board from what I heard, just so you know. So any of you, whether you are, I know we have some elementary people on here, so I know that's still sometimes down the road. For those who are middle school, those who are for high school, and you have kids who are interested in these types of fields, you need to be using these events as an opportunity to say, hey, you've shown a real interest. Tom, you mentioned that at the very beginning. A teacher said you showed interest in this industry or in this subject matter. Let me get you in contact with somebody. That is where we can have that first line of defense to help kids figure out really early on if they're really truly interested in something. So I highly, highly encourage that. Would you second that, Tom?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Otherwise, because a lot of these careers you just don't see. They're not public facing unless you're going to them specifically.
And can I actually add for 1 second, through the Kent ISD, the Groundhog Shadow Day program, we've participated in that the last several years. And have been able to host students in our clinic on those days. So it's a good organized way to get a lot of kids through to be able to see from all different school districts. So we're big fans, and we will be, definitely participating in it in the future.
Yeah, and thank you for plugging that. That's our team. So thank you for plugging it. That's great. I do recognize that there's a lot of people on this call because of COVID this year, and because we're doing this virtually, we have people from all over the state. And I recognize that if you're in an area outside of Kent County, and you're just too far away, that you're like, oh, that's a bummer because I can't take advantage of that. But while we have already provided you Tom and Allie and Lee and others on here on a platter to you in your area, you still have these opportunities and resources. My guess is reach out to a business like the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. You're going to find employers and people just like these people here willing to give it their time and energy, because hopefully somebody along the way did that for them. I know we're just about out of time, so I'm going to have to share my screen quickly and kind of just do a quick wrap up. I would love to chat further and answer more questions and ask more questions, but I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. Just wanted to share a couple of upcoming PDs. Next Monday, we have an educator spotlight series with actually some high school counselors. So Joe, you're over at Byron Center. We have our high school counselors, Carissa Chapman, Jessica Kozaria, and Wade Zalinga will be coming on to talk about a program I did with them a couple of years ago. It was actually an educators in industry, kind of like this, but we did it face-to-face and some follow-up activities. And then on May 10th, we have a high school counselor and high school principal at East Kentwood to come in and talk about a program that they did with us a couple of years back, and kind of it's taken on the life of its own. Our next educators in industry, just like today, and our last one is May 12th. And that's with Hope Network, and that will be May 12th. That will be the last one of the year. Finally, just a couple other things. Final session of the Career Readiness Network for those who are in the Grand Rapids area, or maybe you've been signing up because you thought it was a great opportunity. That'll be May 6th. And if you have not done so yet, check out our new K-12 Career Readiness Framework at kenISD.org/CR Staircase. So Career Readiness Staircase. A couple other things, and then I do have some stuff for you. This is really important. I'm going to put in the chat in just a moment. I'll put it in the chat because some people say, hey, I didn't write that down fast enough. Can you put it in for me? But we want to hear from you. Considering this year's limitations, the whole reason we're doing this virtually is because we couldn't do it face-to-face. And the benefit of that was it allowed people from all over the state to be able to be a part of these. So tell us, I'm going to give you a survey link here. It is very short. Please take some time to fill it out. Yes, that's not for SCECHs, but I want your feedback. I want to know what worked, what didn't, what should we change. So I'm going to give you that link, that bit.ly link in just a moment in the chat. Please take a moment to fill that out. It would really help me figure out how I look at next year. Do I continue doing some virtual ones? If we can go back face-to-face, I would certainly rather do face-to-face, but maybe I still consider doing some virtual ones for people saying, hey, listen, there's no way I could come to this because I'm over in Taylor, but I would still love to see these. So maybe based on your feedback, I'll consider that. And then finally, the survey for today's event. In order to get SCECHs for today's event, you will need to go ahead and go to bit.ly/EII-SCECH. And then the 6-digit code is 598376, 598376. Again, I'll put that in the chat here in just a moment. Finally, just wanted to say thank you on behalf of myself. Our email address is below. My email address is below. Our website, careerreadiness.kenISD.org. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll throw that stuff in the chat in just a moment. To Tom, to Allie, Joe, Alex, Lee, Angie, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate what you're doing. You gave us a lot of information. These are recorded, everybody. So if you want to go back and look at these later, we'll post it to our website, and we have a YouTube channel. So really appreciate the time that you guys have all invested today. Again, I'll put this all in the chat, the links in just a moment. But just want to, on behalf of Ken ISD and our Career Readiness Department, thanks to all of our participants here today.